welcome you all here today and like to call our March 1st meeting to order. And we'll start the meeting off with the roll call.
Mr. Bryson?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Dr. Dozier?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Elmore?
Here.
Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Gunn?
Here.
Mrs. Hartung?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Keels?
Here.
Ms. Leatherman?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. McIntyre?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Dr. Kelly?
That it? Okay. Sorry about that. A quorum is present and the press has been notified as required by the Freedom of Information Act. You have a copy of the November 16th, 2017 minutes. I'd like for you to, if you haven't, review those. Are there any questions or additions or corrections? If not, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's approved. We'll begin the committee reports section. The Executive Affairs Committee did meet and no action was taken. The Academic Affairs and Accreditation Committee, Mark Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a really productive but busy meeting. Basically, I wanted to start by just mentioning enrollments. We heard from Associate Provost Waters. The spring enrollment currently is 3,353 students. This is up a bit from last year. And she indicated that total applications are up 19% from the previous year, and total acceptances are up 18%. So that's all good news on the enrollment front. Moving along, we've got 3 resolutions listed, and I wanted to go through each of those. The first one actually requires board approval, which is the Master of Education in Teaching and Learning at Francis Marion University. We heard from Dean Meets Holcomb of the School of Education. Basically, there's a significant shortage of K through 12 teachers throughout the state, and particularly the PD region. And this is aimed at addressing that need by offering certification for individuals who already have a 4-year degree in the different needed subject areas. So it will allow those students who have studied other majors outside of education to pursue the education degrees and address that shortage. So again, Mr. Chairman, if we could, we'd like to get approval on that, and I guess I'll turn it over to you for that.
Okay. You have a copy of Resolution 0118, and you had that for your review. Are there any questions, any further discussion on that motion to approve in the Master of Education in Teaching and Learning? Okay. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second resolution is to, it's basically the second and third are asking for ratification by the board. They don't necessarily require board action, but they did want to run it through the board. We heard from Dr. Scott Kaufman, who's the chair of the history department, about the resolution 0218, which is the teacher certification in the Bachelor of Science in History and the Bachelor of Arts in History. And basically, this is along the same lines. There's a critical shortfall for social studies teachers across the state. They actually did a poll of superintendents, and more than half of the respondents indicated they'd be hiring at least 5 social studies teachers in the next 5 years. So in order to meet that shortfall, again, this is a program for certification to allow the history department to produce more folks who would be available to teach those subjects. So if we could, we'd like to move on that resolution.
Okay. We have a request by the committee to ratify the new option in teacher certification in the Bachelor of Science in History and the Bachelor of Arts in History. Any discussion, questions? All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion's approved.
Thank you. And finally, Resolution 0318. This is to ratify the new options of sports management and sports marketing in the Bachelor of Business Administration. We heard from Dean Rajagopal of the School of Business. Basically, these are new tracks that would be under management and marketing. There was a lot of inquiry from prospective students as well as current students that were interested in these areas. So instead of creating a new major, what they aim to do is utilize the current curriculum with a sports focus. There'd be some other classes that are taught through the athletic program, and it would allow them to achieve degrees in sports management and sports marketing under the business administration program. So again, if we could, we'd like to move to ratify that through the board.
We have a request. Any discussion or questions? Not. This is to ratify the new options of sports management and sports marketing and the Bachelor of Business Administration. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, I'd just like to mention, we also heard from Associate Provost Chris Kennedy. He had indicated the exchange programs with Ireland are moving forward, that the Carlow College program has been approved, and that should start in the fall. So a lot of good things happening on the academic side, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Next, we have Development Alumni, Frank Elmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Development Alumni Committee met this afternoon and heard from Vice President of Development, Darrell Bridges. The couple of events coming up that I'd like to remind the board about. On March the 13th is the annual Education Foundation Scholarship Reception for donors and scholarship recipients at 6 o'clock at Smith College Center. On April the 6th, the Chairman's Classic Golf Tournament is coming up at the Country Club of South Carolina. There's still room for a couple of teams. Dr. Dozier, I don't know if your team is in yet or not, but I think Ken's waiting to take your check.
Looking for some quality golfers.
Lots going on at the Performing Arts Center. Here's just a few. This weekend, March the 3rd, Graham Nash, and on April 21, a black violin group, which has really taken college campuses of our size across the nation by storm. And this next one was of particular interest to me. It's the evening before spring commencement, the Marshall Tucker Band, Friday evening at the PAC, so that ought to be a lot of fun. And as a reminder, tonight at 6 o'clock, the Office of Alumni Affairs is hosting the Alumni Association Award Ceremony. There's a reception that begins at 6 with the ceremony following. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report.
Thank you. Next, we have Financial Affairs and Facilities, Stephen Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. The Financial Affairs and Facilities Committee met this afternoon. We were joined by Vice President for Business Affairs, Jay Kispert. You should all have a copy of the budget summary report there in front of you. Just to note that we're looking at financial figures as the month end of January, as of February just ended yesterday afternoon, so those numbers were not quite available yet. We'll start with revenues and inflows. Fall revenue finalized at $18 million, or 97.2% of our revenue estimate. Revenues from undergraduate enrollment were less than anticipated for the semester, which were offset to some degree by increased graduate nursing enrollment. Spring revenues as of month end for January were $16.9 billion, or slightly over 100% of our revenue estimate. The excess in revenue estimates are due in part to a strong undergraduate retention rate, the addition of our Doctorate of Nursing practices and prerequisites for our speech pathology program that will officially begin in the fall of 2018. Total operating revenue received thus far totals $37.3 million, with all appropriations having been received. Auxiliary and designated revenues received year-to-date are primarily related to student fee collections and dining and bookstore contractual revenue related to fall 2017 activity. Capital and debt-related funds received are related to interest earnings on capital project funds held by the university and funds transferred to cover debt service for the athletic complex. Total revenues for the year are budgeted at $88 million, of which we've received $72.3 million. On the next page, under expenses, As of the report date, our general funds were 53% expended, which is in line with the expected percentage expenditure compared with 55% as of January 2017. Our total employee head count sits at 502 and FTE is 449.7. 4-year change in head count is 15 and 12.4 in FTE. Last page regarding financial aid. Financial aid is currently projected at $52.2 million, which is a 1.8% drop from our November estimate. Primary reason for this drop is a reduction in estimate of loans students will take on this year, which dropped $652,000 from our November report. Nothing on facilities at this point. Dr. Carter may touch on something in his report, but if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them at this time. If there are no questions, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you very much. Next, we have Student Affairs and Athletics, Jody Bryson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Student Affairs and Athletics Committee met this afternoon, and we were privileged to hear good reports from Teresa Ramey and Murray Hartzler and Mercedes Smith, who's our student government president. I'm always amazed at the depth and breadth of the many activities and events and opportunities that Student Affairs and Athletics and student government present to our student body. And I want to highlight a few of those at this time. Had a very successful Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration featuring keynote speaker Councilwoman Teresa Urban. Homecoming apparently was a huge success. I want to highlight a few events that took place during that week. The Patriot experience was attended by over 140 students. It featured a three-point shootout with both students and professors, a dunk contest, which I understand President Carter was runner-up in that, and also performances by the Francis Marion cheerleaders and dance team.
Mr. Bryson, I was the basketball.
Thank you for that clarification, Carter. There was also a very well-attended bonfire that was sponsored by the athletics department, so thanks to them. The parade was a great success with 24 entries, and the theme of homecoming this year was a hero's homecoming. We also heard a report on the International Holocaust event, which was held recently. Marlene Roth of the Columbia Holocaust Education Commission was a speaker there. And then our student government president, Mercedes Smith, announced to us that executive officer elections were held this week, have just concluded, and those results will be announced very soon. And Senate elections will be held March 6th and 7th. And then after all of those newly elected officers and senators are sworn in, student government will prepare their professional development trip this year to New York City, which will occur during the end of spring break week. So we'll look forward to hearing all about that when they return. And Mercedes wanted me to report that student government is looking forward to finishing the semester strong and will continue to solicit campus-wide feedback from our student body in an ongoing effort to continue to improve the student experience here in terms of dining, housing, technology, etc. So we appreciated that report very much. Just a few highlights from athletics. The women's basketball team finished their season 16-12. The men's basketball team is still playing. They finished in third place in the Peach Belt Conference regular season standings, and they will be playing Saturday at Clayton State in the semifinals against UNC Pembroke. And then this is breaking news. We just learned today that senior guard Dietrich Browning was named Peach Belt Conference Player of the Year, and that is quite an accomplishment. Just a few highlights. He was named Peach Belt Conference Player of the Week a record 7 times this season and a record 10 times in his career here at Francis Marion. He set program records for points in a game, 41, for season total, 699, and I guess still counting, Murray. And career high, program high career points, 2,318, in addition to many other career marks. So congratulations to Dietrich Browning and the men's basketball team. Former national champion, All-American golfer Matt Dura, and former four-time All-American women's tennis player Anna Maria Meadows were both named members of the Francis Marion Athletic Hall of Fame during, inducted during homecoming weekend. And then finally, I wanted to point out that both the men's and women's cross-country teams earned all academic team honors for the 2017 seasons with grade point averages of 3.41 and 3.29 respectively. Overall in athletics, the fall GPA was 3.013, so quite an accomplishment. And then one final reminder, Murray wanted me to mention that he is still accepting vacation homes, luxury automobiles, etc., as auction items for the April 26th fundraising auction, which will be held at the PAC. So if you have something that you'd like to donate, or if you'd like to attend, please see Murray. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Good, thank you. That concludes our committee reports. Next, we'll go to the president's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me thank the board for passing those three program resolutions today. Each of those programs play an important role in enhancing, expanding our curriculum, especially those two that will broaden what we're doing for the school districts and supporting K through 12 education efforts. In addition to those three, the faculty has just recently sent me the mechanical engineering feasibility study, recommending approval of mechanical engineering feasibility, and I've accepted that study, and we will, over the next year, move in a direction of developing mechanical engineering. We'll work with the faculty in developing the curriculum, getting it passed by academic affairs, the Senate, and ultimately the faculty. And shortly thereafter, we'll bring that back here as a board resolution. That will likely be, provided the board's support, of one of our appropriation requests for next year, money to fund the mechanical engineering program. I think that'll be an enormous complement to our industrial engineering program as we continue to work towards developing a comprehensive department of education, a comprehensive department of engineering on this campus. I think we're only a few short years away from being able to do that. I will also tell you that Dean Whitman-Price has told me that she is very anxious to move forward with some nursing specialties, and I support her efforts 100%. So within the next couple of board meetings, you'll see that we'll introduce a couple of resolutions relative to moving ahead with some of those nursing specialties that I think are critically needed statewide, but especially in the PD region. So stay tuned on that one. We're very excited about that. As those of you who have read The View, you've seen the wonderful article in The View that Tucker wrote about our Bell Baruch agreement with Coastal Carolina and Hub called Barony. That program's well underway now. I'm very excited about that program. I think it's going to be terrific for our faculty. It's a good partnership for Coastal, our first real academic partnership with Coastal. It promises to go very, very well, and I want to give an awful lot of credit for the work that's been done on there on that initiative to Dr. Lynn Hanson, who we named the co-director of the Bell Baruch Institute for South Carolina Studies. So if you run into Lynn, compliment her for all that hard work. Lynn's been working on that initiative for 2 years, and it's come to fruition.
Where is that located? I'm just trying.
I think it's located right in the middle of your school district, okay?
Georgetown.
And we would be enormously appreciative if the school district would contribute some money.
I'll mention that next board meeting.
If I can be a basketball, you can be a dunker, okay? Mr. Chairman, let me move on. I've been sidetracked here, okay? You know, over the last 5 years, we've focused systematically on a number of things. This board, this administration, this faculty. About 5 or 6 years ago, we began investing heavily in campus security. And we knew it was the right thing to do. We knew it was essential to make sure that our students were well protected on this campus. We enhanced and broadened our siren system, our electronic alert system. We put an enormously large number of cameras on campus, such that every academic building on campus has a camera on every corridor in that building. A camera that will be accessible by police officers going into those buildings. We increased the number of police officers on this campus, and frankly, we increased the armament that those police officers have. That was a good thing. We followed that up the following year by seeking an appropriation from the General Assembly to begin developing an enterprise resource planning system to move away from those green screens on our computers and get into an integrated information system across this campus that would serve students and other constituencies with timely information that would allow them to manage their own academic life with the support of faculty and other folks. 2 years ago, we decided to get serious with graduation rates and retention. We asked the General Assembly to give us some support there, and we began CAS, our Center for Academic Support and Advisement. Dr. Kunka has done a terrific job leading that center. We're realizing some very notable successes in the support we provide our students coming on this campus, particularly first-year students, not just in terms of advisement, but other academic supports, such as the writing lab, the math lab, tutoring center, early warning alerts if they're getting into trouble academically. Last year, we began working on revamping our admissions process. And Dr. Waters has been the lead on that. She's done a terrific job as well. We've hired a new admissions director, Jamie Hunt, who I think we're all very, very pleased with. We've increased the number of student advisors, admissions counselors who work with the various schools and who are actually our direct recruiters out there. And we've made a pitched effort in terms of changing our mission a little bit, changing our message to better alert people across the region and the state that we're much more of a comprehensive university now with a very, very wide range of majors. You heard the report a few minutes ago from the committee. The net effect right now is that admissions are up 19% over what they were last year. Those of us who have been in this business a long time know that ultimately the real measure is how many tushes are in the seats in August, okay? But certainly at this juncture, everything looks very, very positive with regard to where we're going with admissions. Next year, our big focus will be student programming and student activities on this campus. We've done a fair number of things this year, a couple I'll talk about in just a second, to move us in that direction, but Ms. Ramey and I have talked at length about all of us being more aggressive moving forward. She and I have worked to kind of revamp and remodel the Student Affairs Office, and I'm very, very optimistic that under her leadership, we're going to have a terrific next year in developing a much more expanded array of student activities that will engage far more students than we have been able to in the past. In that regard, I would give enormous credit to Tucker and Chris Kennedy. They've worked hard to put in place this year a President's Bowl competition, an intellectual exchange. Those of you who are old timers remember the old GE College Bowl, okay? That's what we've built on campus, and it's been a wonderful competition among student organizations with a real focus on intellect and academic achievement. It's been a very, very successful contest so far. Chris, we're about to advance to the semifinals, I believe, and if you haven't caught one of those President's Bowl competitions, come out in the evening and join us. It's a lot of fun. We are bringing Arts International back to campus this year. We've had it downtown for a couple of years, Daryl, maybe 3 years. It's worked well downtown, but the downtown layout doesn't quite suit what we want to do to better enhance the visibility and frankly the imprimatur of the university. So we're bringing it back to campus. There'll be a lot of different and I think very creative aspects to that to Arts International this year you've never seen before. One of those will be a collapsible boat race on Lake Coleman, okay? So student organizations will compete with one another and racing boats across Lake Coleman that they will design and build themselves. Now, Chris Kennedy will be the admiral for all this. Chris, I do want you to know in executive session, I talked to the board about the possibility of the board developing a boat and entering in the race, and I can't tell you the measure of enthusiasm that I was greeted with in that process. So save a space for the board, okay? Or at least a couple of them. Let me pause here and be serious for just a second. Our SACS reaffirmation process has been going on for 2 years. The site visit team comes here in 2 weeks. One part of the SACS reaffirmation process this year they've asked us to consider is having the board complete annually a self-survey, fill out a survey form that essentially allows you to address your own knowledge and competencies with regard to your trusteeship and the university. So if we could take just a second, Dr. Wages, do you have the
Survey, please.
the surveys? Good. We're gonna hand these out. You can deal with this one of 2 ways. There are stamped envelopes in there that you can complete them and mail them back to us. Or at the end of this meeting, you can just find a quiet area in the cottage and take about 15 or 20 minutes and complete the survey. We really do want all the surveys coming back relative to this requirement, though. And all the surveys go back to Charlene, who will compile the data on behalf of the board members. Very, very quickly, let me just say this. Ways and Means produced their budget. I think as many of you know, none of the colleges and universities got any recurring money in that budget, but we were fortunate enough to be recommended for an appropriation of $3 million, which would go towards the renovation of the old post office downtown. Now let me just remind you that's a nice appropriation. but we actually need $8 million to renovate that old post office. I'm cautiously optimistic that more money will materialize there when the budget crosses over to the Senate and the Senate Finance Committee. So we'll wait and see what occurs with the appropriations process. By the way, our commencement speaker this year will be Senator Harvey Peter, who just happens to chair the Higher Education Subcommittee on the Senate Finance Committee. I think Senator Peeler will be an engaging speaker, and I think it'll be exciting to have him on campus. He's been on campus a long time ago. Senator Peeler hadn't been on campus in about 15 years. So I hope you all will turn out for commencement and join me in welcoming Senator Peeler. Finally, Mr. Chairman, tonight, of course, is a very distinctive night in the university calendar. We use tonight to recognize and give awards to our very, very best and brightest, our alumni, who serve this university in so many ways across this state and this region. Those ceremonies begin at 6:30, but the reception begins at 6. So I hope all the board members can join us down at the Performing Arts Center for that event this evening. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Next, we have unfinished business. At our last meeting, the nominating committee presented two motions, one which would be slate and another for an amendment to the bylaws. And you have a copy of that, but I'm going to read the proposed change that was put before you at the last meeting. And this would be a change to the section of the bylaws related to the officers of the board. The officers of the Board of Trustees shall consist of the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. Election of officers in 2018 shall be held at the quarterly winter meeting. After 2018, officer elections will be held at the spring meeting. New officers will assume office on July 1st, subsequent to the election. Each officer is elected for 3 years or until a successor is elected or qualified. In the event of a vacancy in the chair's position, the vice chair will succeed to the position for the remainder of the term. All other vacancies in the office may be filled at any meeting. A chair may not serve consecutive 3-year terms. The other officers may serve multiple terms. So basically what we're doing is changing the term from 2 years to 3 years, and also the terms begin on July 1st, which is also the start of our fiscal year. So at this meeting, we're electing the officers to begin serving on July 1, but in subsequent years, the election will be at our spring meeting, which is usually later in May or June. So those are the changes. Are there any questions, any discussion on that? If not, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's approved. The other item is the slate, which was presented at the last meeting, and that slate is Chairman Robert Lee, Vice Chairman Randall Dozier, Secretary Floyd Keels. Any discussion, further nominations? If not, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion's approved. There's no other unfinished business. I don't have any new business unless someone has. And we don't need an executive session, so that gets us to the adjournment section. And if there are no objections, we'll stand adjourned.